AskReddit by Few Finish 6502. What is something you deeply regret doing as a child that still affects you to this day? Being so mean to my younger sister in our childhood. I often wonder how much I contributed to her current mental health struggles. It eats me alive some days. As a younger sister of a very mean one, do tell her. Minded in our 30s, and I cried my eyes out of relief, because the child inside you, even though adult you knows better, still feels like there is something wrong with him/her in order to deserve that. And yes, serious damage can be done. It's not easy growing up being hurt by someone who is supposed to protect you. I forgave her, and although at least in our case something is broken forever, we have now the chance to be as close as we can in this new circumstances. I wish the best for your sister and you. And remember that it wasn't your sole responsibility. The adult around should have interfered or taught you better, helped you open your eyes sooner. Main reason I forgave my sister is because she was 7 years older than me but quite young too. And even though I got the worst part of it, I know it hurt her too. In middle school I jumped from the top of a slide and landed flat on the bottom, hurting my back. Pretty sure I've never recovered. That's weird. I believe I can pinpoint the start of my lifelong back pain issues to when I was young and pretending I was the Hulk and tried to lift something way too heavy for me to do so. I recall feeling something give in my lower back, and here I am at 50 plus years of age with an ice back on the same spot, talking about it on the internet. Might be a coincidence, maybe not. Falling into the trap of if I don't ask for too much maybe I can get what I need. Including, if I tell people what I want, they'll say no to spite me, but if I don't let them know, they might give it to me unthinkingly. When I was 13 or 14, I saw one of my lifelong friends walking down the street, blank stare with her makeup running. I was on my bicycle racing to get home before my 8 PM curfew, so I didn't stop to talk to her. She committed suicide that night, and I was the last person to see her alive. I went through intense therapy after that, as I was filled with guilt and grief. I still have issues with that guilt today, some 21 years later. When I was a senior in high school, I went to see Revenge of the Sith with my best friend the weekend it released. The following Wednesday, while we were leaving class he asked me if I wanted to go again the coming weekend. Told him I wasn't able to because I already had some plans. He walked out of school, went home, and committed suicide. And X200B. Will never stop blaming myself. I've never told anyone. I still visit his parents every year around the date. Next Thursday. I took everything to heart. All the insults, all the failures, all the minor mishaps. I couldn't just let it pass me by. It hit me right in the heart, which is why my current mental health leaves a lot to be desired. Talk to a psychologist. High sensitivity is an own thing, and learning about it can help you see your childhood in a different light. Giving my knees floor burn for fun. I don't have a clue why I thought it was fun. Now they are in an awful state and completely covered in scars. We don't have a clue why she thought it was fun either. Her knees. When I was 12 my mom got drunk one night and told me to drink with her. She was pretty aggressive about it and I was too intimidated to say no since I had a habit of agreeing to almost anything. I started drinking and she'd regularly supply me with alcohol so she could have a drinking partner. I struggled with alcoholism for over 15 years. I've been sober for over 4 now, but all of my teen years and most of my 20s were absolutely lost. Wish I had been more brave and not taken that first drink. Edit. Wow, I wasn't expecting so many replies. Just want to say thank you to everyone who shared their own experience and offered their sympathies. I'm sorry some of you also had a similar experience. Addiction can feel impossible to escape. To anyone who's overcome their own struggles with alcoholism, I'm so proud of you, and I hope you are too. You were a child. Shame on her. I'm sorry that happened to you. Not sleeping in my dying father's bed with him. He asked me to because he didn't want to be alone. I was 18 at the time and wasn't not prepared for all this. Until the day I die I will never forgive myself. Reality takes form for us at various different ages. You being 18 shows that you were emotional enough to realize it's a lot for you. Now that you're older you feel that you could handle it tenfold. I feel for you. He's your father and loved you. I'm certain he understood. Deleted. One time when my family was camping and I was maybe 8 years old, I found a bunch of jellyfish in a puddle next to the ocean. They must have been carried there by the waves or something. The puddle was pretty big and almost connected to the ocean, but the poor things were trapped there. I climbed onto a big rock in the middle of the puddle and leaned down as far as I could to reach them. Once I'd gotten a hold of a jellyfish, I quickly stood up on the rock and jumped back to the land with the jellyfish in my hand. Then I released it into the ocean. I repeated this process several times to get as many jellyfish out as I could, and tried to do it as quickly and gently as I could. As I did it, I kept reassuring them it's okay, I've come to save you. You'll be free again really soon. You're safe with me. But eventually, one of the jellyfish slipped out of my hands as I jumped off the rock, and instantly shattered into a glibbery mess when it hit the ground. In my entire 8-year-old life, I had never felt as guilty as I did in that moment. I thought I was saving it. Deleted. Sounds like something a serial killer would say. Deleted. You shouldn't regret this. You didn't have thicker skin or the ability to stick up for yourself because you lacked the experiences that have led you to become who you are today. Past you did the best you could with the life skills you had available to you at the time. When I was 4, the husband of my aunt died. Very soon after his death, the whole family was gathered around in the living room, me sitting across her. I wanted to make her feel better and said, "Don't worry, you will find a new Matty you will love." The hurt and surprised face of her haunts me even today. I understood I did something wrong but not really what at that moment. We are on good terms and she is living a good life now. She very likely forgot what I told her that day. I'm probably the only one remembering that conversation. You were 4. I don't think anyone can really hold that against you. One time when I was 6-7 I rode on a 4-wheeler with my older sister. We hit a dip in my grandparents' pasture. My sister fell off and she went under the rear tire. She needed immediate surgery. My grandmother still blames me for it and it has affected me deeply. For years I listened to how my sister almost died due to my negligence. Deleted. Stop exercising any kind of working out because I was told my movement is awkward. Tried to shrink myself because I was a tall girl that stands out of other kids, which ruined my posture. Now I have a very bad scoliosis that causes mild but chronic back pain. It's very visible as my waist is not symmetrical. Might have to go under a big surgery, putting braces to my spine, in the next 3-4 years. Edit. Thank you. I didn't know scoliosis is purely caused by genetics. I had that complete spinal fusion surgery. My spine basically looked like an S before. It's a tough recovery time but now I'm completely pain-free and active. Spending time of sights like Liverleak and Rotten while in elementary school. Sitting at home all day during high school. Not studying while in school and struggling with building discipline today. Sounds a lot like me. Turns out, ADHD, dominantly the inattentive type, despite being more than capable. Same issues today, but now I have meds and bursts of last-minute motivation to get work done. Not well, but averagely. Still pretty bad. But, better. Not applying myself more in my studying in high school. On the reverse side, I feel like I have all I had in HS. Got straight A's the whole time. By the time I attempted college I was just over it, plus I watched the kids who got C's get the exact same treatment in the end. Not only did I just stop putting even half my effort into things, but I also realized all those base course classes didn't teach me anything about what I might want to do in life. I always had a job, but I can't say I've ever loved any job I've had, including my current career. It's made for a very unfulfilling work life, and I wish I'd spent more time figuring out things I like doing instead of taking AP classes for skills I no longer need use. Deleted. I'm sorry, mate. The hardest thing is realizing you became what you hate, and it's scarily easy to become it. Not going on with my education or getting into a career. I have cystic fibrosis. I genuinely didn't think I'd live long enough, so why waste time and money? Now I'm 42 thanks to science. Sheesh. Damn medicine. We were only supposed to live till 40. Now thanks to science I'm forced to live till I'm 100 and hooked up into machines to live. Not going to the vet with my dad when he had to put my dog down. She had heartworm in the time before treatments. I was 10 or 11, and instead of going to be with her in her last moments I cried in bed. I feel so bad for it even decades later. I've been sure to be with every pet in their last moments since. I feel this. I was so young I couldn't handle the grief, process it. Maybe I saved myself from a worse feeling in the immediate moment, but God, I wish I could have been there for them in those last moments. I missed 3 pets, the first when I was 8, the second when I was 9, and the third when I was 11. At 17, being more stable with those emotions, I made sure I was there with the 4th, and will continue to be there for the others, no matter how much it hurts. Rather than being parented, I was making life decisions at 6 years old. I said no to going to a gifted school so I would not leave my friends in 1st grade. I have not seen or spoken to a single one of these friends in over 40 years. Deleted. I called one of my mom's ex-boyfriends poor and ugly when I was 9. He didn't deserve it at all. I was just fucking mean. He always drove us around in an old Bronco and I hated it. Now that I'm older I realize his car was so badass and he loved it. He only wore raggedy clothes because that was his style, and he loved himself some ripped jeans and skater shoes and to be covered in tats. I always remember him now as an adult as one of the coolest people I've ever met. He was nothing but nice to me and I was a fucking little asshole. I wish I knew where he was so I could apologize for being a little shit, and I hope he's happy living his best life. Cross country. Goofed off with friends during warm-ups. Ankle and calf got caught while I was in a dead sprint. Loud snapping noise as my knee went. Healed okay-ish. Was able to get back to running a year or 2 afterwards, but it's deteriorated over the years. Early 20s now and I have to use a cane to get around. Can't go running anymore. Can't go hiking anymore. Stairs take a lot of effort. Too many flights and I struggle to walk even with a cane. Some nights I have a hard time falling asleep because it aches so bad. Take care of your knees, y'all. You don't know what you'd be missing. I'm sorry to hear that. Have you heard of Guy? His program has helped a lot of people with debilitating injuries recover their knees. While I did not have as severe knee issues, I have experienced great relief. Contributing to a kid in my 4th grade class getting bullied. I wasn't the most direct bully, but I didn't do anything to stop it either. Man, this is the exact comment I was looking for. This kid Michael Wren transferred to my school in the middle of the year in 4th grade. He was a foster kid. So he didn't have the nicest clothes or shoes. He had it pretty rough. We used to line up outside of our classrooms before class started, and I remember this one time. I forgot the reason for the altercation, but he got close to me and I kinda slammed to the ground and yelled, "Don't touch me." Whatever the reason was, he absolutely did not deserve that treatment. I was never a bully, and even helped people that needed help. To this day I wish I could find him and just apologize. It makes me tear up thinking about it. He must have already had it hard at home and it shouldn't have been tough at school for him. This is the one thing about my childhood I despise and would slap the shit out of my younger self if I could. If my mom knew at the tea. If you're reading this, I'm very sorry and you deserve better. My parents divorced when I was 4. Both got remarried when I was 7/8. My mum and stepdad were all about school homework and practice tests for school exams and routine and being strict. Basically being parents. My dad however gave me and my brother loads of sweets and crisps, let us stay up late and watch scary movies and never did homework. At my dad's pushing I would go home and say things like I wished I lived with my dad instead. I wish I didn't live here and I want to go back and smack myself for how awful I made my mum feel. I didn't find out until I was a teenager that my dad had an affair, gambled away his pay every week and hid my mum when she was pregnant. Even knowing this, my mum never slagged off my dad to me growing up, never said anything to me about his behavior when they were married because she wanted me to make my own mind up as I got older. And then there's me and my brother coming home as kids and saying how much we wished we lived with dad as he was better. I ended up going no contact with him for 10+ years. Still eats me up to this day about how my mum must have felt after I said those things. Not telling my mother about my father's affair sooner. I was scared of losing one parent because of divorce as a child, so for 7 years I kept that secret within myself, and when I did told her, he had done some horrible stuff to her which I didn't know about at the time. I wish I could go back and tell her about it so that he would have left our lives sooner. Driving all my friends away in 6th grade and obsessing over the one friend I had in junior high to the point I stopped myself from making other friends. I know that it wasn't entirely my fault, since my friends at the time treated me badly too, but it still affected me. The friend I had in junior high rarely came to school, so I was just waiting for her like a dog abandoned on the side of the road. I have trouble socializing and even maintaining eye contact to this day. Maintaining friendships is tough, too, since my mind is convinced that they'll just leave eventually. I know it's not true, and I have friends that love me, it's just tough to shut down the assumptions. Giving up on my hobbies because my family told me it wasn't a viable career choice. And that artists only became famous after they died. I used to love art. Now, I can't even sit down and doodle without that phrase sitting in the back of my head. Edit. I want to thank all the kind Redditors in the comments. I sat down and wrote out a list of things I wanted to do hobby-wise and started getting little sketch pads and pencils for doodling in my spare time. I hope to rekindle myself so I can enjoy these things once again. Do it. Make art. It doesn't even have to be a career, just make it because you enjoy it. Art is the physical manifestation of the soul, let yours shine. Being too hard on myself, demanding too much, forcing myself to be too mature. I also did a lot of self-harm which caused me to have very low self-esteem. This one. I had an approval-seeking, perfectionist, inferiority complex that kept me in a suicidal depressive state from 7-19. I'm just thankful I made it out alive and I'm now living a normal adulthood after many years of therapy. Best friend and first friend came to me in 4th grade to tell me he was moving that day. I didn't know how to handle it and threw him out of the house. Tried to see him after a few hours, ran to his house but too late. Read in the news he got hit by a car and killed a year later. I always try to keep my wits about me and listening instead of getting physical now, even if I absolutely despise what's going on or feeling hurt. Using kick. Holy shit, this is relatable. It's a miracle I got myself out of being groomed too long. I'm 52 today. I can still remember the exact day, at my 9th birthday party. It was the very first time I can ever remember overindulging on food until I felt uncomfortably full. It was a huge bowl of ice cream, with all kinds of toppings. And I forced myself to finish that off, because, after all, it was my birthday. I felt uncomfortably full for hours. But I believe that awakened something in me. And from that day forward, I have been overweight, unwilling to curb my overeating, and making myself uncomfortably full several nights a week. That sounds like binge eating disorder, and you can get help for it. Being so deeply impacted by what others thought of me. I allowed what others thought of me to cloud who I actually am. Allowed others to tell me I wasn't enough, I wasn't thin or pretty enough. Ignoring my dad all the times he tried to teach me things like car maintenance, home repair, etc. Before I stopped speaking to him. Thinking that dying would solve all of life's problems. It's been hard to get out of that revelation. Hurt. And same. Once you recognize that death is actually a solution, it is very difficult to get that voice out of your head. Out of bread, death. Angry at the neighbors, death. Nasty divorce, death. It is a constant for those of us who have truly crossed the line and been there. I get it. My anxiety was so bad I never got to have the high school experience of having friends and going to football games etc. Same here. I had it really bad as a kid and thought it went away in middle school. Turns out the whole time I had just been coping with it by avoiding anything that could cause it, that is social interactions and new situations. Didn't defend my sister while she got bullied in school for having cancer. She was teased, threatened, and kids pulled off her wig when she lost all her hair due to chemo. I would just ignore it or would brush it off. I know I wasn't much older, but goddamn how lonely and terrified she must have been. I was a coward. We're adults now and she can't remember much of her childhood, which I think is due to the trauma. Can never forgive myself for that. When I was around 11, my parents bought me a release day special edition copy of Skyward Sword for Christmas. We're not Christians, so them buying me anything for Christmas alone is amazing. But that copy had the golden Wii remote and everything. I was at my cousin's and I called them while they were waiting in line, upset and threw a tantrum at them because my cousin got an Xbox 360 and they said no when I asked for the same thing in the lead up to Christmas. I started Skyward Sword but got stuck on a puzzle and dropped it. I ended up getting an Xbox 360 for my birthday mainly because of that tantrum. To this day it bothers me deeply that I did that, and on top of that I didn't even play the fucking Zelda game. It's honestly something that I think of at random times and it ruins my day to remember. Dude, my parents got me that game for my birthday and I didn't even play it cause I didn't like it. 3 of my sibs did create profiles on it and played it though. Not standing up for myself when confronted. Took the easy way out and backed down a lot. Not saying I needed to be a tough guy, but I really regret people picking on me and me not doing anything about it. I feel like it could have really helped with my self-confidence. I accidentally grabbed a girl's boob in grade 8 during a wrestling portion of a combatives class. I got called a creep and the way the girls all looked at me has stuck. I now overcompensate to make sure I can never be seen as a creep, and it has made trying to date very difficult. Better than the kid in high school who very intentionally grabbed a girl's boob in front of about 150 students, but from an angle that it was blocked from the view of the teacher. That guy was a creep. He'd brag about hooking up with girls from clubs, probably a lie, but he absolutely would try to take advantage of girls any chance he could. His father heavily encouraged the behavior. God, that guy was a piece of shit. I didn't invite a kid to my birthday party. When I was 13 I had an overnight birthday party. My best friend cancelled that day to go hang out at another kid's house that I did not invite to my party. Found out the next morning that the reason my best friend went over to his house was because his dad got a new shotgun they wanted to play with. If I would have invited both, my best friend would still be alive. I know this has been said before, but this is not your fault. I don't know what happened. I assume it was an accident. Your actions didn't lead to that accident. Please don't blame yourself. When I was about 13 or so, there was an old man that lived down the street from me. He was generally kinda grumpy, but left us alone for the most part. One full day, we saw him out raking the leaves up from his yard. It took him all day long, raking. That night, my friends and I went down to his house and opened all the bags of leaves and spread them all over his yard again. Not sure why we did it, Just bored, I guess. The next day that poor old man was out there raking them all up again. I still feel awful about it 35 plus years later. Being really mean to my childhood friends. Every time a little squabble would happen I would just cut all contact and then pretend like I forgot they existed. I lost every single one of my friends and it's still taking a long time to make new ones. I regret not taking the time to figure it out with them instead of being a jerk. It really messed up my social skills. My dad used to beat me senseless when I was little. Most of my earliest memories of him are violent ones. I remember when I was 5 years old I brought a stray puppy home from outside. No collar, or anything like that. I was playing with it in my room and I was trying to make it listen to me. I used a thin and hard toy sword and hit the puppy so many times the way my dad hit me, thinking that's how I was supposed to teach it how to obey. We gave the puppy away the very next day to a family friend, thank goodness. It's been well over 30 years, and I will never forgive myself. Because of this shameful moment I've grown up swearing to myself never to hit my children, and I will never harm or kill any living creature. Except flies and mosquitoes. I've never shared this with anyone. I still deeply regret it to this day. I hope that puppy lived a long and beautiful life away from me. In 2nd grade we were holding hands making a wave across multiple people. Arms up and down over and over. I got excited and pulled a kid's arm right out of its socket. He cried a lot. I still feel bad. As someone with fucked shoulders, you can let go of your pain. That shoulder coming out had nothing to do with you. I once had my shoulder dislocated because I high-fived someone. When I was 14, I got sexually involved with a 35-year-old married man. I guess I should have known better. I do hold a lot of guilt because at the time his wife was pregnant. Hey, this 100% wasn't your fault. You are a victim here. I'm so sorry this happened to you. As a pregnant wife in my 30s, I want you to know that if my husband fooled around with a 14-year-old, I'd be upset, but not at you. I'd feel like I dodged a bullet. My first instinct would be to make things right for you, the 14 years old, and then get me and my baby to safety. My baby will be a 14-year-old one day and will have 14-year-old friends one day. I'd much rather go through a divorce now than let history repeat itself. Was 14/15 and at KFC with some friends. Was putting my bones from the chicken in the bag when a friend said you haven't eaten all the chicken, then threw his hand in the bag to dig it out. I grabbed his hand and told him it was rude to eat someone else's food without asking. He didn't ask and left the food. Many years later I heard his parents were drug addicts and he never ate properly. Still sticks with me that he was most likely starving and I refused to give him food. Mike, if you are out there reading this, I'm sorry and wish I had been better. I had a teacher in 7th grade that was engaged, enthusiastic, legitimately cared about the students and me in particular, and was just a lot of fun. I had seen some comedian do a bit about how crazy it was that some teachers were paid less than garbage men, and it was funny. Long story short, in class one day I tried to be funny and recreate the bit, which basically resulted in me plainly stating that she, in fact, made less than trash collectors. I could see that she was just disappointed, hurt, and she never really had that same glow and warmth that had previously been there. Now, I have felt like garbage ever since and I'm in my mid-40s, still think about it to this day. I'm so sorry, Ms. L. An older kid and I were playing in the creek when we spotted a snake in the water. He convinced me it was a poisonous snake, so we had to kill it. Neither of us really knew what we were doing and started smashing it with rocks and sticks. It took a long time for it to die, and it was an agonizing death. That night I couldn't sleep and cried thinking about watching it suffer, and felt miserable for days. I'm a snake owner today who takes great care of them, but it still haunts me. Not chasing up the police for not being bothered to investigate my dad sexually abusing me. Crying. Endless crying to try and get my way. It just made the people around me miserable. I was not fun to play with. Adults just hated having me around. It never got me anywhere. If anything, it made things worse.